everybody, it's your favorite teacher, Miss Granado. I realized with as many people as we're out today that I may want to record my research paper breakdown for you today, and that way you could have it no matter where you are in the world, and you can refer back to it if needed. So today begins our journey into writing a literary exploration paper, or basically like a synthesis paper. It's an AP essay over some important element of your book, the kind of essays we've been writing all year, but you're synthesizing 4 sources into that paper. And so here's my philosophy on research papers. First, research papers are the number one type of paper that you will write in college. So it's really beneficial for you to write one here your senior year. Second, it's really important that you get to know online literary databases and important academic places like that, like Gale, which we're going to be using for this paper. Third of all, I think that people hate research papers because there's so much work, and it's so tedious. But really what I'm going to teach you to do here is what I think is best practice when it comes to writing a big paper. You need to front load the end of the paper. You need to front load the beginning of the paper. For example, a lot of people just kind of blow through the planning stages and getting sources, and then they have to sit down, they have to read everything and put it together, and it's a daunting task. For us, we're going to do so much on the front end of really developing our topic, developing our thesis statement, analyzing our sources, pulling out quotes from those sources, citing those sources, that by the time you sit down to write the paper, you should really have everything there for you to put it together a lot easier. I feel that same way about AP essays. I feel like some students skim over the piece, and then they're trying to write about it and have to keep going back and they have to keep looking, when really I would rather front load it. I'd rather spend my time on the piece, pick out my quotes, do a rough sketch of my essay, and then get going, because I want to have a plan in mind. And so I'm going to kind of guide you through that idea with this paper, more of a front load process. I feel that way about recipes too. I feel like people think that cooking is hard when they don't have anything laid out and they're trying to follow the recipe, but they need to add milk and they're supposed to keep stirring and they don't know how to do both, Well, have your milk already poured. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. So that's what I'm going to be helping you do with this literary exploration paper. So let's look at this document again. It's been a while. The objective is to analyze literature, and you'll be writing a longer, more thorough AP essay. You'll identify the major elements the author is using to create meaning and explain how they show an overall universal theme. You'll develop an arguable original thesis, which means that's your point of view. And I think that's the scariest part sometimes about research papers. People want to find someone else's point of view and then prove their point. And that's not really what you're doing. A research paper is supposed to be your creation, your baby. So if you think that Heart of Darkness is really a feminist text, then by God, set out and prove it, and tell me why you think that. So you'll need a thesis statement, you'll need support, you'll need to synthesize ideas from multiple sources, you'll have to, make sure you have a good analysis and a close reading of your text, and write with clarity, fluency, and a sophisticated tone. Now, you've already chosen your book, so we can skip through all of that. And you can skip on down to class requirements. So this is what you're going to be doing, okay? The central focus of the research paper is the elements of author's craft and the overall theme of the paper, of the piece that you're writing, that you're reading. And the piece that you're writing, I guess. Both. They need an overall message and theme. All right, so you've already done bullet point 1. You've already chosen your novel or play to analyze. Now we're on this step here. 4 secondary sources. They may be books, magazine or journal articles, or literary criticism. Literary criticism just means someone wrote an article about your book. That's it. Like someone is criticizing your piece, either saying that, Heart of Darkness is awesome, or Heart of Darkness is horrible, or here's some examples of irony and heart of darkness, something that was written specifically about your piece. And we've got a whole database of those things on Gale, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. Then the sources, once we find the sources, it's going to help you decide on what your thesis statement is going to be, okay? You can focus on setting, symbolism, character development, complex relationships, extended metaphor, irony, etc. Basically, you have this huge book, and normally you're given a topic. You're given an APSA topic, but you don't have that here. You are kind of creating your own. You have the freedom to look at something in your text that interests you, that you think would be cool. And so you're going out there and you're looking for sources to help you put together that idea. So here's some examples of some thesis statements from a paper like this. The unreliability of the narrator and things they carried creates emphasis on both the writer's process and intentions, as well as the reading experience. Through this, the author is making a claim about the purpose of writing a war story and remembering the individuals within it in order to provide insight not only into the world, but also the unpredictability of society and the world. Within Brave New World, wow, I've said world a lot, Aldous Huxley uses repetitive expressions, concrete diction, and foils in order to reveal the disposability of characters and gain control of the reader, ultimately warning readers against the devaluing of individuality that is often used to overpower and control people with differing ideology. By the time, you have 6 weeks to work on this paper, you may be reading that and think, I can't write like that. Yes, you can. First of all, your papers are getting so much better. Second of all, you've never had 6 weeks to write a paper. So when you have 6 weeks to write a paper, you're going to go back and you're going to make it sound good, and you're really going to work on the wording and all of those things that, go into author's craft. Now you notice that both of these sound like a Q2 question. They're focusing on literary devices. You could also use your paper more like a Q3 paper. You could look at some overarching idea and then the things in the book that help create that idea. So either way you go is fine. This one is more about one thing, the unreliability of the narrator. And that sounds more like a Q3 to me, because a Q3 normally just asks about one thing. This one sounds more like a Q2. They're going to talk about repetitive expressions, concrete diction, and foils. So they found sources that they kind of wanted to spread out over 3 different literary elements, all using to prove the same idea, that you shouldn't devalue individuality, or you should take that as a warning whenever you see someone trying to do that, because they're going to try to overpower and control you. We're going to use MLA guidelines for this paper. It's a 7 to 10 page paper that's double-spaced in Times New Roman 12-point font. The paper will include in-text citations and a works cited page, which we'll go over together. The works cited page does not count towards your total number of pages. So if you write 7 pages, the works cited is page 8. Okay? While an in-class APSA may only have 4 paragraphs, because of timing, this essay can have as many paragraphs as the writer needs. This will be an AP paper taken to another level with much more in-depth analysis and exploration of themes and deeper meaning and what the author is using to create that meaning. So you notice that right now what we're doing, not this hard copy because we decided to submit on Google Classroom, we're doing these 2 things right here on Google Classroom in class today, and then next week we are all going to be in the library. Okay, and so I'm going to kind of move this deadline here a little bit. You have 4 source exploration documents. Notice that you have 4 sources and you have 4 documents. The reason being is that we want to look at each source and go ahead and cite it and pull out quotes from it and be able to use that very quickly. And that way I can approve your sources very quickly. So you're going to submit each one of these on Google Classroom. And I'm actually going to change the due date to March 18th at 10 p.m. on all of these, because you will be in the library all next week, but I know some people will be out. And then B Day, your last day in the library, is the 18th, and so you want to be able to go ahead and work on your sources all the way through, the last day that you're in the library. So you'll have all next week and then the Monday after spring break to really put together your 4 sources and those documents, analyzing those sources. Now that you've read your sources, it's time to start formulating your ideas for your paper. And then we're doing the topic submission today just to kind of get you thinking about it. But we're not going to do our thesis until we're done with our sources, because your thesis may change, as you're working on your paper and you're seeing your sources. You may decide to change kind of your focus. So we're going to keep your thesis submission till right before we start writing. All right. So we'll submit our thesis in class on that next day after we leave the library. And then you'll have time to work on your rough draft. And your rough draft won't be due until April the 1st. And you'll bring a hard copy the next day for a writing workshop to class. And then in class, I'm going to teach you how to do a reverse outline. It's really cool, and it's a way that you can look at your paper before you submit it and really make sure that it's organized and that you've said everything that you wanted to say. So we're going to do that in class, and then you'll have time to finish it if you need to at home, and it'll be due April 7th, and then your final draft will be due on April 11th. So you've got a month from today to submit your rough draft. And 4 weeks and then another 10 days before your final paper is due. And hopefully this amount of time is going to give you the time to really create something that you're proud of. The other thing in this packet are research guidelines. It tells you exactly how to set up your paper. You do a heading that's over in the left-hand corner. You put the title of the paper. You leave a 1-inch margin. We're going to add our last name and the page number, which I'll show you how to do. Indent the first line of each paragraph. There's things here about how to quote. It shows you how to do in-text citations, which we'll continue to go over. But as you're working on your paper and you have questions, go to this packet, because a lot of what you would probably ask me is here. And then here's some more information about citations. The English Purdue OWL website is amazing for MLA citations. Then it talks about your works cited. It's a separate page at the end of your research paper. You're going to label the works cited, page works cited at the top. You'll double space all citations, but not skip spaces between entries, and I'll show you what that looks like. Citations are listed alphabetically. And then you indent the second and third and fourth lines of your source, not the first, like we're used to doing in a paragraph. Kind of interesting. But anyway, if you want to see what a completed works cited looks like, you can click here, and it's going to show you. See how it's double spaced, but there's no extra spaces between? See how it's alphabetized, and then the second lines are indented? So that was just an example for you. The grading, here's the research paper grading rubric. You actually get 3 grades, and then that's divided by 3. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going over today. And then let me switch here to where I need to go. I'm running out of time. I'm going to have to do a second video. Oh no. But let me show you on Classroom what we're doing too. I'll go ahead and end this one, and then I'll make a second one.